welcome back to the channel. So if you're new to the channel, please click the subscribe and the like button below. Click that little bell as well so you can get a notification every time that I post a new video. I'm going to try and get more regular videos out, which is what I'm doing tonight. So this one's a little bit of a shorter one. I got a package today from Confuel. Now Confuel are one of my sponsors, so disclaimer here, some of this, these products were gifted to me. Confuel are a nutrition company that rebooks other nutritional companies. So all your big brands, SAS, High Five, Powerbar, Enervit, any of the big brands you can think of, Confuel repackage in smaller containers. So it means you don't have to bulk buy anything. The perks of this is if you find a good combination of powders, gels, chews or anything, you can get a select amount of them, and you can get that posted through your letterbox every week, or you can just do orders from time to time to experiment with different products. I had a really good conversation with James, the owner of Confuel, the other day, and we just went through a typical sort of Ironman day. We went through the sort of demands of the event, how long I'd be on the bike for, how long the run would be, that sort of thing, to try and see if we can dial in the nutrition a little bit more. I've only ever done one full distance race at Ironman Wales in 2019, and with Outlaw Full and also Kona this year, I wanted to make sure that I'm doing the necessary stuff now to prepare myself ready for those races. So some of the big things that we spoke about were not necessarily actually around the bike, but actually about the run. So what I want to try and do today is quickly run through swim, bike, run, what nutritional products I'm going to be looking to take on. There's a few brands that I haven't used before, there's a few brands that I have used before, but I'm just going to experiment over the next month or two to really dial in that nutrition and see what works for me, because I think a lot of people get used to using like a certain type of brand or a certain type of gel because it works okay, and I don't want things to work okay. I want to make sure that I've dialed it in to the point where my body is used to that product, my body knows exactly how much energy and carbohydrate is getting from a certain product, and that I'm able to then race really, really well because of that. Let's have a look. Okay, so in prep for all the races, what I want to think about is what I can do before the race to basically preload. And what I have been doing for the last couple of seasons is actually using precision hydration, so basically just checking the electrolytes are as high as possible. I think in the build up, sort of the day or two before the race, it's important that one, you stay topped up on your electrolytes, making sure those levels are nice and topped up. I think for me, it's just about eating real foods really for the most part, not taking too many supplements in the build up to the race, but trying to keep food simple, trying to get those carbohydrates in, but not do anything drastic like carb loading, because we know that leads to bloating and stuff like that. And then pre-race, it's just about getting a little bit of carbohydrate in. So what I'm going to do is I use these quite a lot anyway. These are the tablets with the 0 calories in, but what I will be using is a few of the sachets, which they contain a little bit of carbohydrate and not very much at all, but I'll be using them in the pre-race stuff just to give that little bit of carbohydrate before I get onto the start line. 45, 46, 47 minutes later, once the swim is done, you're going to be out straight from T1 straight onto the bike. So this is where I wanted to try and dial in my nutrition. So for the last couple of years, I've been using SIS Beta Fuel. Beta Fuel's got 80 grams of carbohydrate, it says on the back of each sachet, and it tells you to mix it with sort of 500 milliliters of water. I've experimented with mixing it with slightly less water. It's quite a thick powder, but it does work, so you can actually mix a slightly higher concentrate if you want to get more carbohydrate grams in a bottle. I've tried and tested this one. I know it works, I know I feel really good on it. The only thing that slightly puts me off it sometimes is it has a very sugary, sickening taste sometimes. So once you're sort of a few hours into a race and you've had loads and loads of sugar already, it sometimes just doesn't sit very nice in your mouth and it makes you feel a bit burpy and a bit ugh. So tried and tested. I've got a few of these because I know they work, but I'm going to try and experiment with a few different products. The first is More10 320. So More10 is very, very similar in terms of, I believe it has 80 grams as well. per serving, sorry, it's 79 grams of carbohydrates, so it's almost identical to the Beta Fuel. I actually used one of these today on my ride, and the taste, I have to say, is probably a lot more subtle than the Beta Fuel for a similar amount of carbohydrate, which is really interesting. So I've got a lot of these that I'm going to be giving a go on some of my longer rides, because just because something like Beta Fuel works for me doesn't mean that you can't find something that works even better. So yeah, I'm going to experiment a little bit with that and see how that goes. That being said, I've also got some 320s with 100 of caffeine as well. So there's a lot of evidence to show that there's a benefit of sort of trickling caffeine into your nutritional plan. I'm going to experiment a little bit with this and see how it makes me feel. I know that some people, the caffeine doesn't sit right in their stomach, so it's just about whether I can take it on the bike and that's fine, sort of past the bike onto the run, or if caffeine is something that probably I need to stay clear of. So I'm quite looking forward to trying that out. What I will also try and do is I'll probably look to, well, first I want to try and get a sweat test with Confuel. So I'm going to try and do that just to dial in exactly how much sodium I lose and the concentration of that. But what I'll probably try and do is add some of the 0-calorie tabs into the mixture of More10 or either Beta Fuel, just to try and top up those electrolytes a little bit and make sure that I'm sort of as full as I can be before I get onto the marathon, especially in a race like Kona where sweating is going to be a big issue. I think these are going to be a lifesaver. The only other thing I have for the bike is some of these chews and also some bars. But so these chews are GU. I also like the Cliff Bar ones. I think that they're really nice. It's sometimes nice just to chew something instead of just getting liquids. So I'm going to try these. There's decent carbohydrate in them, and it's nice just to mix in the slightly different, I've forgotten the word, slightly different flavour. The last one is standard Cliff Bars. So per bar you're gaining about 45 grams of carbohydrate. Again, a really nice way to mix up slightly solid food into the nutritional plan. This would be taken early on the bike because you wouldn't want to try and be taking this in just before trying to run, because it probably would not sit very well. So onto the marathon, which is something that I really haven't managed to dial in yet. So whenever I have been doing races and stuff like that, I've managed to take a gel or two, but I've always found that I didn't want to take a gel in because everyone knows that they can make you sick, or they can also cause a bit of gut problems, which may need Laportaloo later in the race. So I've always stayed clear of taking too much on, and actually that's been a negative of my racing. And I've only done obviously the one Ironman, but I definitely could have taken more gels, and I actually finished with a gel in my number belt at the finish, which you shouldn't be doing in Ironman. You should be taking the nutrition on. So one thing I want to try and do is really train my gut to be able to take more and more gels and stuff while running. I've always stuck with SIS. The gels seem to work, again, okay with me. I've never really had massive problems, but again, I have had an odd sort of problem or two where it's caused a bit of cramping and stuff like that. So I thought, try something different and see if I can find something that works better for me. First one, straight away, is the More10 gel. So good dose of carbohydrate in each of these. By the time you get into the marathon, you're not necessarily trying to put as much carbohydrate in as you would on the bike, but you're just trying to delay the sort of loss, because you're going to constantly be sort of losing during the marathon. So it's just about sort of keeping on top of it. So I've heard really good things about these. These are nice and small, so they can be carried or put in a back of a tri-suit. So I'm going to give that a go. Again, if I'm going down the caffeine route on the bike, you've got to keep the caffeine coming. So once you start caffeine, you shouldn't really stop. So about drip feeding the caffeine through the day. So I've also got the caffeine gels to give a go. Ones that I haven't tried before, these 32 GI sports gels. So they are, again, they're just a slightly different one. I've basically had advice saying that these really work for some people. So again, I want to give them a go and see if it works for me. If it does, then great. If it doesn't, then no harm lost. So I'm going to experiment with that. That looks quite a cool product. And again, really super thin, and you could easily chuck 6, 7, 8 of them in a back pocket. The last is a bit of a random one. It's called Mule Bar. It comes in like a little bit of a toothpaste. Can you see that? A little bit of a toothpaste bottle, and what people have said is it's really easy to pop in to drink the gel out of this. And it's a bit more of like it's a bit thicker, so it's a bit more like a paste. I actually hadn't heard of them until I spoke to James at the weekend, but looking into what he said, and also then Googling it, quite a lot of ultra runners have sort of sworn by them and said that they're like the go-to thing when you're doing ultra running. So again, running a marathon at the end of a race, if it's good for an ultra runner, then running a marathon it's got to be good for. So I'm going to experiment with that as well. Yeah, and then so I basically just got a few little different things to try out with. I'll still be using quite a lot of the Beta Fuel. I still got the SAS gels that I'm going to be taking on as well, because I think you just got to, a part of it is a bit like you train for swim, bike, run. It's kind of like the fourth discipline is kind of that nutrition, and really dialing in that nutrition plan for your half or your full distance race. So yeah, it's not necessarily that I've done things wrong in the past. It's just that I've got the opportunity to experiment, and this is the time to experiment when you're racing in 7 or 8 months time. You don't want to be experimenting the month before, so you really want to get products that suit you and that work for you, and then work with them. So yeah, I'll fill you in at some point based around how I feel, but used the more 10 on the bike today and really enjoyed that. So I'm going to try the gels later in the week on some of the runs, and yeah, go from there. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you enjoyed something slightly different like this, like just me chatting about nutritional products or whatever, then please drop a comment in the section below. If you've got any more nutritional advice in terms of products you take that sit really well with you, then again, comment them, because I'm in the process of basically just trying to work what works for me. So any advice would be really good. If you like the video, put your thumbs up and like that button, and then yeah, see you on the next one.